I've been sitting here trying to figure out how to talk about the My Hero Academia ending for this whole season, and I keep coming back to the same feeling. Not shock or even sadness, but a kind of quiet heaviness, accompanied with an eternal sense of gratefulness. The sort you feel when something that's been with you for a very long time finally comes to rest. The series ends tomorrow, and even now, it doesn't quite feel real, which I think says a lot about how deeply it embedded itself onto my life. This is a story that carried me through periods where things felt overwhelming, where hope felt like something that you had to actively hold on to rather than something that came naturally. MHA was never just escapism for me. It was a reminder that effort matters, that growth is uneven, and that kindness isn't something you outgrow. Watching it end feels less like finishing a show and more like saying goodbye to a way of thinking that helped me through everything. For years, My Hero Academia was dismissed. People called it mid, said it fell off, reduced entire arcs to memes and bad faith readings. Some of that criticism came from frustration, some from expectation, and some from a fandom that outgrew the story faster than the story wanted to move. But watching this final season and seeing how many people have returned to it with fresh eyes, it's hard not to feel that the series didn't suddenly become good again. It simply stayed true to what it always was. The heightened reception now feels less like redemption and more like delayed recognition. The final season didn't save My Hero Academia. It reminded people of what was always there, and that feels like the right place to start talking about its ending. Before I continue, I'd like to remind you guys to just like and subscribe. 90% of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribed, and I'm back on YouTube fully now, so please do like and subscribe. What stands out the most about MHA's ending is how unwilling it is to soften the consequences of everything that came before it. There's no sense that the world neatly heals itself once the final battle ends. Instead, we're left with people who survived, not unchanged, not restored, but moving forward anyway. Deku loses his quirk, Bakugo survives, but with a permanent injury on his arm. Ochako carries the weight of Toga's death, not as a lesson learned, but as something unresolved and painful. The Todoroki family continues to exist in that uncomfortable space between reconciliation and irreparable damage. However, none of this is framed as failure, it's framed as reality. The series refuses to equate survival with happiness, and in doing so, it avoids one of the most common shortcuts in the genre, the idea that suffering must always be rewarded. Instead, MHA acknowledges that some wounds don't close cleanly, and some relationships don't resolve into something neat or comforting. There's something deeply respectful about that choice. It trusts the audience to sit with discomfort, to accept that healing isn't linear, and that growth doesn't always look like victory. Deku's ending is often framed as tragic because he loses one for all, but that framing misses what the story has been building towards from the very beginning. Deku was never defined by his quirk. One for all was a responsibility placed on someone who already had proven that in the most important moments that he would act even without power. His heroism wasn't born from strength, it was recognized by it. Losing one for all doesn't erase what Deku accomplished, it clarifies it. The power was always temporary, a means to an end rather than an identity. What remains is the person who learned what it means to carry others, to fail publicly, to ask for help, and to see value in people society had already written off. The ending doesn't reward him with permanence because permanence was never the lesson. The confrontation with Shigaraki reflects this more than any physical victory could. Deku doesn't save him by fixing him, or by absolving him of what he's done. He saves him by refusing to reduce him to a monster, by recognizing the child who was abandoned long before he became a symbol of evil. That act of recognition doesn't undo the harm, but it interrupts the cycle that created it. And the cost of making that choice is everything Deku has left. What I find most moving about Deku as a protagonist is how openly he carries his humanity. He doubts himself, he cries, he hesitates, and the series never treats those traits as obstacles he needs to shed. Deku is someone who was relentlessly bullied since he was a child. Someone who was an outcast from the moment he was born. Someone who was never given the one thing he wanted to fulfill his dream, a quirk. He wasn't bestowed with the tools to achieve his dreams, yet he never gave up hope. Someone who was so willing to save others at the cost of his own life. With all these obstacles in his path, you would seldom be able to think that someone like Deku wouldn't be able to become that hero. Instead, they're presented as the reason he's able to connect with others in a way no one else can. His strength comes from empathy, not despite it. That's why his ending is also so quiet. There's no grand victory lap, no final declaration of greatness. He doesn't need it anymore. He's proven it to himself. By the time the story ends, Deku understands that being a hero isn't about standing above the world, but standing with it, even if it means stepping back once your role is fulfilled. The fact that he gets to become a teacher, I think, is very beautiful, and it fits his character really well. Watching the final season unfold, it becomes difficult to argue that MHA somehow lost its way. What's more accurate is that it never adjusted itself to match shifting expectations. It stayed focused on character, consequence, and long-term emotional payoff, even when that made it an easy target for dismissal. With the anime landscape being so extremely built on hype and good animation and fights, however, with the story so in tune with its writing and themes, it felt like a very easy series to branch off in your own expectations of where you would want the story to go, and naturally, feel unhappy when the story doesn't follow the direction you wanted, which is honestly a testament to how well the foundations of the series were laid in. The renewed praise feels less like a comeback and more like a correction. With the full context now visible, earlier arcs take on new meaning. Choices that once felt slow or frustrating reveal their purpose. Threads that seem underdeveloped find their resolution, not through spectacle, but through consistency. The series didn't betray its themes, it committed to them. And now, with the ending in sight, that commitment is finally being recognized. As the series comes to an end, what I feel most isn't sadness but gratitude. I was the same age as Izuku Midoriya when the series started. I went on this journey with him, growing up as he did alongside me. I feel gratitude for the series, for being the pillar in my life, keeping me on my toes. Gratitude that it trusted its audience enough to be patient. Gratitude that it allowed characters to be incomplete, to struggle, and to grow without promising perfection. Gratitude for the fact that it showed me how life can be so full of ups and downs, and how beautiful it can be all the same. My Hero Academia mattered to me because it never suggested that hope was easy. It suggested that hope was something you choose again and again, even when you were tired, even when you were afraid, and even when you didn't know it would pay off. Letting it go feels strange, not because it failed, but because it succeeded in becoming something personal, something that helps shape how I think about effort, empathy, and resilience. That idea that growth is uneven, that people carry damage with them, and that choosing empathy is still worthwhile even when it doesn't fix everything, is what lingers most for me now. The ending doesn't wrap up those ideas neatly. It doesn't tell you that the world is suddenly fair, or that everyone finds peace. Instead, it shows people continuing forward with what they have lost, what they have been left with, and instead of being defined by it, they continue to grow. My Hero Academia doesn't end by telling you that everything will be okay. It ends by suggesting that even when things aren't okay, effort, compassion, and understanding still matter. And for a series that spent so much time exploring what it means to be a hero, that feels like the most honest conclusion it could offer. So when I think about the ending, I don't feel like I've lost something. I feel like I've been given something I'll carry forward long after the final episode fades out. And maybe that's what makes it so hard to say goodbye. MHA means everything to me. It's so incredibly hard to even put it into words. All I can muster is a true thank you from my heart. Kohei Horikoshi, thank you so much. And as All Might and Deku would say, plus ultra. Like and subscribe.